from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking Catholic, the official podcast of the Camden Diocese. Today is a really special day because it's a Boxing Day, and I just learned that term today. So the usual hosts of the podcast are actually the guests, and some of the guests who have been dragged in repeatedly are the hosts, myself included. So this is Mary McCusker. I work for the communications department and for Catholic Charities here in the diocese, and maybe we can start by introducing the other lovely co-hosts.
I'm Maria D'Antonio. I am the communications coordinator in the Office of Communications at the diocese.
And Mary Beth Peabody. I do communications and marketing for South Jersey Catholic Schools.
And we are here to interview and grill the official Talking Catholic co-hosts, Mike Sanchez, or Mike.
Wow,
things are getting weird already. Mike Walsh.
Oh my God, it's just like an amalgam or
It's like a Frankenstein monster.
I haven't introduced you guys yet, so no talking.
That's right, gentlemen. I believe you don't talk until after the hosts have had their time up front.
That is
And you wait
absolutely
to be
correct.
be introduced. That's how it usually works.
You're absolutely right.
Absolutely right. So Mike Walsh and Pete Sanchez, welcome to your own podcast.
Thank you, Mary. This is lovely. I've never been more nervous in my life. All right.
I'm saying I have jitters.
They are both red as apples.
I've been interviewed a lot as a PR person, and this is the number one most nervous I've ever been for an interview. So I can't wait to see what happens.
And that makes me really happy because, honestly, I'm really excited. I see this as a payback from what Mr. Walsh did to me last year. He called me and said, "We've begun a podcast and we're going to feature you on it. Be here in 45 minutes." I said, "Okay, what am I going to be talking about?" And I'm all sweating and nervous. And he said, "Just be prepared to talk about who you are and how you became to be the person you are today." And I said, "Oh, great, no pressure there."
That's the easiest question there could be.
I was the guinea pig. So now the tables have turned.
That's right.
And we can ask you all the questions. So
I thought it was very easy. I thought it was going to be an easy request because you are the expert of your own life. So how hard could it be to talk,
to sum up who
to
you
wax
are
eloquent
in 45 minutes?
Yeah, you'd be great.
Well, I'll start by saying congratulations to you both because you just celebrated your 100th episode of Talking Catholic.
We
so
did.
how does it feel to have accomplished that much?
Well, maybe we need to explain it a little bit because this is the 99th episode. So
we recorded it out of sequence.
Yeah, they're going to go up. The 100th episode will go up next week, but we recorded it a week ago in a twist of Stranger Things irony, and that, by the way, that event was fantastic. I mean, you'll hear it all next week, but that was definitely a great evening that we were very happy to be a part of, right, Pete?
Yeah, I don't think it could have gone any better. Beautiful music by Jeff Shields and Lori Power and Father Rob Sinatra. We were the four, and Jeff did the music for the whole evening. I don't want to spoil it. Father Rob, Lori Power, and you and I were the four kind of hosts, and then
we tried to get McCusker on it, and she refused.
We did. Well, she did a wonderful job.
After hearing
photos.
how well everybody else was doing, I said, no way. These people are way more articulate than me. I'm not getting up on stage there.
Oh, stop! You would have been a natural as you are here in the vault. But we had one of your pictures in the paper this week in the Catholic Star Herald. So thank you for that. And it's I'm just blessed.
Yeah.
I'm just blessed to be here now and blessed for the 99 other podcasts.
And you came in on your day off too to do this episode. As can be told by the fact that you could not be more casual right now.
Yeah, I got the Mark Zuckerberg look with the hoodie and the
jeans. Yeah.
And I just want to say your talk is a segue into one of the biggest questions I have for you two, and that is, what was your intention for Talking Catholic, and were your expectations met?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. Do we have the same intentions? I feel like we might have had different intentions. What was your intention for the podcast?
My intention was I'm a naturally curious person. So I am always interested in, I read a lot of biographies. I watch biographies on TV, and I kind of just wanted to get to know people and also to kind of get more into my faith. And I love listening to podcasts, especially the one more conversational. And I just kind of, my intention was to have a good conversation with people from everywhere. Talk with them, what makes them tick, what inspires them, what struggles they've gone through, because I think everybody's gone through struggles. How do you deal with it? And pick their brain, so to speak. I always feel like I'm always I feel like I'm in a big grocery store and just trying to pick something from everybody, to help me. I mean, maybe I'm selfish in that way. Maybe it was a selfish need but I'm being honest. I am interested in people and also interested in being a better person. And I think just getting to know people, I think every one of them so far has really inspired me and helped me, hopefully, God willing, be a better person. I don't know. Only God's the judge.
And it's not selfish, because so many other listeners now hear the voices of all of these people around the diocese doing such different but great work. So I don't think it's selfish.
See, I had the complete different perspective. I thought it was completely selfish.
Well,
it's completely
I stand
unrelated to
corrected,
why
I
I
guess.
did. No, I'm just kidding. No, that has definitely been a side benefit of the podcast. I agree with that. I can't say that was my reason for doing it in the beginning. But with the possible exception of the podcast we did where Pete and I just talked to each other for an episode, and possibly this podcast, depending on how things go, we've only had one and possibly two bad podcasts. Every interview we've ever done with anybody else has been phenomenal. The hope when Pete and I first started talking about doing the podcast, I was an avid podcast listener too. And, I really like long form conversations. But what I was really hoping to do was put a spotlight on people in and around the diocese who are really doing great work, but may not get the notoriety that they deserve, and more importantly, may not get the opportunity to explain sort of why they do what they do and what brings them to where they are, and maybe other people who listened could glean some interesting ideas about things that could be done. And the people we've had on the podcast have been really, really outstanding. Pete books almost every single one of them, and I prepare for almost none of them. It really, what you hear as part of the podcast is exactly, I'm learning along with everybody else. And one of the elements of it that I have trouble with is because I prepare so poorly for it, and that I have such a terrible memory. We will often be interviewing people, and I cannot remember what their name is. I just can't. I might remember what their name is, but I can't recall it at the moment. I want to say, hey, Claire, how are you? So I do a lot of, and I do this in my personal life all the time. It's a lot of hey and hey you. Hey, so just getting back to that other topic you were bringing up. And
now all our listeners know that you've forgotten all about them if they're hearing this.
No, I remember their stories. I remember their faces. I cannot remember their names.
No, actually, I'm the same way.
Yeah, I'm not a names person. But and I will tell you that when you come up and greet me, if I look at you rather quizzically, I'll recognize that I know you right away, but you will not. I will not say, "Hey, Bob." It's going because I know I will get the wrong name, and I've done it once or twice, and I just don't do it anymore. I will, however, do the Clintonian style: look you directly in the eyes, shake your hand, make that personal connection with you. Bill Clinton was renowned for his when he would meet somebody. He focuses and I think Tom Cruise is known for doing this too. He focuses all of attention on that one person. There's no drifting off to other things. When he meets with you and he talks with you, he's locked into you. And that's one of the things that made him such a good politician, is he would make these personal connections with people. And there aren't many elements of the Clintonian style that I want to adopt, but that one I actually try to work on a little bit because I think it's important to people to know that you're focused on them.
Mike Walsh loves the Clintons.
Well, let's not quite go that far.
Let's talk politics.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
We may not make it to the 100th episode.
That would be a terrible idea.
There you go.
I have to interject here and say that listening to the podcast often, I'm a fan. But anyway, you learn a lot about the guests that appear here. We know what they do because we work with them. The listeners get to know more about what they do, but really they get to know who they are, where they came from, and know them a little better. And I think that's the interesting part of the podcast. And I think you two do bring that out. You get their stories out, and some of their stories are very interesting. Mm-hmm. And that's why
right.
That's one of the reasons why I listen.
That's
and
right.
Maria's a good barometer too, because when we finish these episodes, Pete never listens to them. I will listen to parts of them just to make sure that they sound right, and and make sure that if in the back of my head, if I wasn't sure about something, I'll go back and listen and do it. However, when Maria listens to it, she's right outside my office, and I can gauge how the episode is going by how much she's laughing.
He likes when I laugh.
I love it when she laughs. That's my favorite part. And then I'll hear things like, "I didn't know that. That is This was such a great guest. You should have her on again. She'd be phenomenal."
He's not lying there.
That's true. I've witnessed it.
Yeah.
Well, now we're talking about you two today.
Oh,
so
yeah, sure.
Let me see. Where should we start?
Start with Pete.
Okay, so Pete's looking.
Thanks, Mike.
So you mentioned that you like asking people, how did they end up doing the work that they're doing? So Pete, you have been here at the diocese for how many years now?
2007, about 11 years, maybe I think almost 12 now.
Oh,
coming up January 2007.
And have you been a writer for the Catholic Star Herald the entire time?
I have been a writer and then dabbling as the career moved along, dabbling into photography, not too much photography, and also podcasting now.
So what I know you were a St. Joe's graduate, just like Mike and I. So how did you end up and Mary Beth Peabody?
You got a master's from there.
Yeah, that's the odd man out.
Maria,
I'm LaSalle.
you're not a hawk.
I'll plug LaSalle University.
So Pete, how did you end up here in the diocese? How did that happen?
Gosh, well, first off, I grew up loving to read, mm-hmm. and I don't know if there are any other writers out there. This is just unsolicited writing advice. If you want to write well, you have to read, and read well. In terms of, I don't know, maybe I'm just being a snob, but read good content, not fake news, so to speak. At times, Mike's giving me a look.
I don't know. Sometimes you got to read it because you got to judge it.
And
exactly. Well, that's a good point. But
actually, you don't have to read the fake news, but you got to know the source. Always know your sources.
Exactly. So I think it. I love to read. People like F. Scott Fitzgerald. I read backs of cereal boxes growing up. Oh. I read
the missing children ads on the backs.
Yeah, the milk
or those
carton.
Milk cartons.
But there's even a sports writer, Jason Stark, who I remember following. He was a Philadelphia Inquirer writer, baseball, Phillies, and one of my favorite writers. I still follow him, but those writers, Dave Eggers was a big influence. Neil Gaiman, I'm still reading. I just loved to read, and through that, I wanted to write. And I studied English undergrad at St. Joe's, and like Mary Beth, then after I got my undergrad, I did graduate with master's in writing studies in St. Joe's University. So I stayed an extra year, and was there something about the written word, and this kind of brought me here, and I got the job because a good friend of mine, one of my best friends, his mom saw the job in the Star Herald and told me about it. And wow. The other big component of this is my faith. I grew up Catholic, cradle Catholic from the very beginning, and led retreats in school and high school and college. Trying to draw closer to the faith, was an altar server, was a lector in college, And I really prayed about it. You know, what happened was I was right out of grad school, the fall of 2016. What am I saying? 2006. And I remember just trying to look for a job, thinking I applied for a few other positions, and my friend told me about this one. I was like, well, it's local, it's in the area, and it's funny in retrospect but I love Long Beach Island, and I go there every summer. And I was like, that's good, you know, that's not too far. I can go there. Little did I know that's not in the Camden Diocese. I've been going further south, visiting places I've never seen before. Atlantic City, Cape May, the Ocean City, which I've never really been to, these places. So exploring. So it just, in these 12 years, it's really been, for me, just a joyous synthesis of writing and faith for me to be able to come together and to, like I said before, I'm a curious personality, and
that is absolutely true. You are a curious personality. I have no doubt about that.
Hopefully it doesn't kill me like the cat.
But it never feels intrusive when you ask questions. You do have a way about you that when you're asking questions, you can... I feel like I can tell when people are being authentic and genuinely curious. So you really do have a talent for that, and for writing.
Thank you.
That's because he has such a...
Don't start ripping on Pete. I
I'm
can
not.
tell where...
I'm
no,
not. I
saw-
swear I'm not. I'm actually going to say something nice.
Oh, boy.
That's
Here we go.
That's because he has such a purity of spirit.
It's true.
It
is.
I mean, he does not have, unlike others in this room, he does not have a... I was referring to myself. He does not have a jaded...
Looked at all of us.
He does not... No, just looking around. He does not have a jaded bone in his body. I mean, there's no... I mean, I don't... I always enjoy throwing as much sarcasm his way because I think he has no appreciation for it whatsoever because there is no sarcasm in him. He is just a joyful, happy, loving, wonderful person.
I want to record that and make it my ringtone.
We
or
just did
something.
record
That
it.
was-
Well, it's, thank
It's
you, Mike.
true.
But I do say, you know, working with the church, thank you for those words, Mike. You spend a weekend with me, and I don't know, things might change.
Oh, you mean I'll make you more jaded? That's absolutely
No, knowing how things, yeah.
Meaning that there are holes in your personality a little bit. Of course, you're a human. I know. I'm not saying you're not. I'm not saying you're saintly. Maybe you'll be a saint. I don't know.
Oh God, no. I mean, I
You're
hope
genuine,
I can
however.
only by God's grace. But it's. I will say, one of the things I've been very blessed is all the people in this room and others throughout the years have just challenged me to be better and help me see my flaws. And Mike, you're...
I try to help you see your flaws as often as I can.
No, you do. And I know that, but I
wow.
mean, like, you challenged me to be a better writer, to be a better communicator, helping me with navigating the events last week with the podcast.
Oh,
like,
boy,
I'd
that
never
was fun.
done much of that before, event planning, making that stuff. And so it's a new world, but, you know, you guided, you know? You were great.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know... I think that's. I don't think we ever stop learning. I mean, you know, I've been doing this for a long time now, and even this week there are bits and pieces that have been thrust my way. I'm like, well, I've never done this before. Gonna have to figure this out.
Well,
And,
Mike, you have... I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
Wait,
go ahead.
I can interrupt.
You're the
'cause
host.
we're
You can
hosting
intercept
this.
whenever you want.
Now, you have had such an interesting and unique background before you came to the diocese.
I don't know if it was interesting, and I don't know if it was unique, but it was definitely varied.
Varied. Okay, that was the word I was looking for. So how on earth did you end
I
up
don't
here?
know. I'm a living example of don't worry about planning out your life because you know life takes care of itself. For everyone who worries about everything in their life and becomes paralyzed with fear if they don't have everything exactly right, nothing's going to happen. Yeah, I'm the example of just wing it and see what happens. I went to growing up. My parents were both teachers, and I fully expected and wanted that I would enter the teaching field. What I lacked was drive and vision, and mostly drive. So I was an above average high school student, but I was a painfully average college student, possibly. Well, I don't know. Depending on where that average is, I was probably below average, and it was more. It didn't have to do with ability. The problem was I was always a talented kid, but I wasn't a particularly driven kid. So I would just rely on, being able to sort of wing things. And turns out that was not a great idea for college because those professors had seen a lot of people just trying to wing it. So I squeaked through with my 2.0, and the state does not give teaching certificates to anyone with 2.5 or below or under a 2.5. So I did. Fortunately, I was able to write a little bit, and my father was a photographer, and he taught me how to take pictures, and was able to sneak my way onto a writing staff for this little podunk newspaper in Pittman that only existed for maybe 2 years before it went belly up. But I got that job because I agreed to be their ad rep. And I was I worked there for 6 months. I think I sold 1/8 of a page ad the entire time I was there. But
it's a start.
But what they let me do was write occasionally for free and take pictures occasionally for free. And so I did, and I was able to write enough stuff that I got a little portfolio together, submitted to another weekly newspaper down the shore. They were foolish enough they needed a photographer more than a writer. So they hired me as a photographer who also wrote, and then I wrote enough that they gave me a regular beat. So I covered Middle Township and Sea Isle and Dennis Township and Stone Harbor and Avalon for about 2 years. And that was perhaps the greatest experience of my life in terms of a formative experience. I'll put that up against college any day of the week.
Wow.
You learn more about life covering murders and arrests and municipal government. You get to see how government really works versus how we read about it in our civics classes in high school. I really got to know all the politicians and all the business owners, and I saw just how connected they all were. And the good news stories were great, and the little featurettes were fantastic. And the only time I ever got really bummed out was car accidents and suicides. They were no fun to write.
Sounds a little. You didn't have to take pictures.
Sure. Yeah. The decision I made to stop being a reporter was when I was sent out to take an attempted suicide in Wildwood. I got there. The person was still alive, but they had him covered. But you could see the red marks on his wrists, and so they were taking him out on a stretcher. And I put my camera up and put my camera back down again. Yeah. Said, you know what? I'm not going to take a picture of that. And I ended up taking a picture of the ambulance driving away or something like that instead.
And that's a really hard line to draw. You know, you want to capture something that's real. Yeah. But you don't want to violate, people's dignity at the same time. I've struggled with that too.
Exactly. And it was one of the few moments in my young life where I thought, I might have a soul, in the sense that maybe there are things I should take photographs and things I shouldn't take photographs of. And being a reporter, that can be a struggle sometimes. I really feel for the guys. I'm friends with a lot of videographers and photographers from all sorts of different publications. And, you'll see these tragic events happen, and those guys have got to sit on the sidelines and take those photographs and take that video, and they have to do it because it benefits the rest of us for someone to actually be there to catalog what actually occurred in these moments. But it's difficult for them, not being able to, and some of them do. I mean, we've seen it happen more frequently in the last 10 or 15 years. You'll see footage of, journalists jumping in to rescue people about to be pulled under and things like that. You didn't see that as much back in the day, at least not captured it may have happened without anyone realizing it, but now we could see it a little bit more. And I think it's probably a good thing that we show journalists having a soul. Because it's not an easy job, and I work with journalists on a regular basis, and I have an incredible amount of respect for them. So there are great journalists, there are good journalists, and then there are, people who are cashing a paycheck. And I'm happy to say all the journalists I'm friendly with are really good journalists.
So that's good to hear.
I have a question for both of you. You both spoke about your experiences, your professional experiences, and neither of you had experience in broadcasting. So what do you think the biggest difference is, broadcasting, communicating via the podcast versus typing out a message via computer, the written word, clicking a camera?
That's not entirely true. You used to go on a radio show semi-frequently when I first got here, right?
Yeah, used to be on station WTMR 800 AM, but how we used to do it is record it, and it was just this individual, Bill Ezekiel, and I, the nephew of our late Dennis Ezekiel, who worked in the Star Herald advertiser. But Bill and I, every week, would get together and we record a show, Holy Souls Ministry. Basically, we'd talk about, we'd do the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and then we would we'd go through the scripture readings for the week and discuss them. This, I mean, not a completely different learning experience, but this, and especially with the writing can be, there's going out in the field reporting, but with the writing, and I'm sure Mary and Mike and Mary Beth can, and Mary, all of us can relate to this, is it's isolating when you're just in your little cubicle in your space, writing the story out in your head, how you think it should flow, how the words should come together. With a podcast, it's almost like this sounds so pretentious, but the only word I can think of is a dance. It's kind of because you have to allow for others to talk. You have to allow maybe for things to breathe. You can't talk too fast. Mm-hmm. You have to let ideas form in your head and be able to express them in that moment, instead of say, like, sometimes I'll just sit in front of my screen for like 5 minutes and nothing will come out. With this, that can't happen. There cannot be that moment of silence, that long of silence, or really any silence kind of with this. But I think that's been the thing to just in interacting with Mike, interacting with the guests, whoever's in the vault or wherever we go, and finding the time to listen. Especially, that's being a good listener is very important, I think, in any role of life, to understand others, but then also to ask questions, to get stuff out of them, so to speak, to pull the right stuff. And I try not to be pushy with that, but if I know somebody has a good story, I try to say something that will draw what I know out of them for others to hear, kind of. I'll admit that I cheat. Sometimes I bring in people who I have histories with, like Lori Power. Mm-hmm. And so I will, I know parts of their life, and I'll be like, oh, just talk about this. And I know, hopefully, our listeners will get something out of it. So that's kind of been listening. Definitely, it's a faster medium. We're only here for an hour. With writing, it can be a little more. It can take me an afternoon to put thoughts together, but I have that time. So
yeah,
that's funny. I listen to you talk, which is unusual for me. I don't usually pay attention when you're asking questions.
Can you utter one sentence without insulting Pete?
Yeah, I've made several sentences so far. My point I was going to make, however, is that I did radio for a little bit when I was in college and getting my master's degree, and I really enjoyed it. My cousin, who I'm very close to, he was a DJ down the shore when I was a reporter down the shore, and we used to hang out when he would DJ a lot. When he was on the radio, and it was phenomenal. But I do kind of. I do wish that I could just be a podcast host, and where I would just be here and focus completely on the conversation like Pete can. What I find is that because I'm usually juggling so many things, and I tell the guests before they come on, I always apologize. I say, listen, I'm going to be checking my phone. I'm going to be getting text messages. I'm going to be getting emails that I have to answer. I promise that I will be listening the entire time. And I do absolutely listen to our guests. I don't necessarily always listen to my co-hosts, but I always listen to the guests. And then I got to hope to God that I'm not going to ask the exact same question that Pete asked. But so it is a little difficult, and I think that's the nature of podcasting versus other things. I wish we had like a proper studio. I wish that I had a sound person who could run the board. So like right now we're sitting at a table in the vault, surrounded by old paperwork that we haven't thrown away in 3 years. All from my predecessor.
But there's some nice pictures on the wall.
Yes,
I see. It's starting to
Pete has done a very good job.
Look a little less like a prison cell.
Yes. Pete has done a good job of taking down the. And actually, I have to give John Kalitz, another person on our staff, a lot of thanks for actually clearing out the vault, because it used to be a lot more claustrophobic in here, and then he took care of a lot of the garbage we had in here. But yeah, I wish I could be a little more focused, but it's just the nature of podcasts they're on the fly. They, they're pretty random. We've gone out probably to, I don't know, would you say maybe 20 podcasts we've done on the road at this point, Pete?
I think, that Cape May.
And those are nice. Those are nice because it's always nice to get out of the office. But it's also nice to go into somebody else's sort of home, business, office, and sit in their world and have that. Like, it was great that we did the Our Lady Star of the Sea a few weeks ago, and the class bells were going off at the end of the day, and we had to pause for a second to do announcements, and that was really nice. I really kind of enjoyed that. That was awesome.
I did too. You're right. We're stepping into their world, or the Queso sisters in the basement.
Went to their house, and we were well fed.
I mean, that was amazing. The pool table was right there. And I think that was very memorable, and it's good it's good to be in here because there's that familiarity, but it's also good to get out.
Mostly, it's good to be here because it's a 2-minute walk from it's a 10-second walk from my office, so I can actually go back and do work pretty quickly. But and I do, and that's one of the things I appreciate about all the guests who have come into Camden to be interviewed is it does make my life a lot easier, and I do appreciate that.
Now, Mike, you mentioned like the nature of your work. It never stops, and that's just the life of somebody in PR. And as we approach the end of the year here and we look back on 2018, it's been a pretty rough year, I'd say, for a number of reasons. But it's been a hard year for the church.
It has been a challenge.
How have you handled all of that personally? And, it must be difficult to not only be reading and internalizing, some of the things like the PA grand jury report.
Yeah.
Events like that, you have to read it, process it, and then communicate it out to the public. So how do you carry on after seeing a year? And I guess this question can be asked to anybody, but, personally and professionally, how do you handle that type of you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're asking. And the answer to your question is I'm not sure. I will tell you that I have the benefit of working with 4 other communications directors in the state of New Jersey who work for the other dioceses, and they are an incredible resource. I'm the youngest or the least tenured of all of the communications directors, and their guidance has been outstanding. They've all been here for anywhere from 8 to 23 years. And knowing that this is not the first time the Catholic Church has had to go through this, that helps a little bit in that, it's, in terms of the job, that it's a job that can be done. In terms of how you react to it, I wish I could tell you that I knew I'm doing it right or doing it wrong. In the beginning, when the Pennsylvania grand jury report first came out, and we'd been expecting it for a while, you had the tension of when is it going to come, when is it going to come, when is it going to come. Then you have the tension of would it just please come so we can deal with it and
Right.
and I can focus on it and at the end of the day, it's kind of like everything else we do here. We do our best, and we take into account every facet of whatever the issue is. So in the case of the sex abuse scandals, we take into account, obviously we take into account the survivors and the victims first, and then we take into account the parishioners who are here and struggling with coming to grips with what their church has done or what previous bishops haven't done. And then, we've had a couple of conversations with young priests here, and it's difficult for them emotionally because here they are stepping into a world that's being vilified because of their predecessors from 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago.
Right.
So that they, those collars have become scarlet letters to some people. And what tends to get me through it is everybody that I work with and all the good that I see the Catholic Church doing on a regular basis. The stories that have come out, particularly in the last 6 months, are from an age that I was not when I was part of the Catholic. That's not a church that I recognize as today. The church I recognize today is full of people. Well, actually, if you look at this room right now, half of the people in the church working those responsibilities are women, which thank God, because the women that I work with, and you three in particular, constantly remind me of things that my male brain may not be the first to perceive, and I really appreciate that. I also see all the great work that the Catholic Church does on a regular basis. One of the benefits of the podcast is I see as you write on with regularity, everything that the Catholic Charities does to support the needy in our communities, the needy who are coming into our communities, the needy who are seeking refuge in our communities. Then you talk to some of the priests, and they're talking about what they're doing to battle the opioid epidemic in all of their parishes,
Right.
and the fact that they're burying people on a regular basis. But at the same time, they have these religious education and schools where there is so much joy and wonderment and learning and opportunities for growing in faith and becoming wonderful human beings. And these young people who will 20 years from now lead our communities. There's such a capacity for good in the Catholic Church that while it can't and it should never dim the scandals that and the attacks that predators unleashed on victims, at the end of the day, I still know that there's such wonderful goodness in everybody that I work with and everybody I see that that helps me to resolve the fact that the Catholic Church is a wonderful place, and I've worked for horrible people. I've worked with horrible people. None of those people exist in the Catholic Church. Your father and I worked together at corporate law firms.
He did not. He was not happy there.
Let's
not mention the law firm.
No, we're not going to mention that out loud. But I worked for a couple, and I will tell you that my soul was not nourished in those places like it's nourished here. And and I've worked at a lot of other places where my soul was not nourished like it's nourished here. Yeah. And so I think that's what gets me through.
Yeah.
I constantly have to rely on the Merton prayer to and on those dark days when, let's face it, we're trying to do our best, but I can't guarantee you that what I'm doing is right or what anything else that anyone else is doing is right. All I can pray and hope is that whatever I'm doing, I'm doing what God hopes that I would be doing right now. And, hopefully when I'm dead and buried, I'll find out that I did it right, or he'll tap me on the shoulder like, so close, Mike. You almost got it. If you had just done this, and this instead.
But until then, you're winging
hopefully,
it and praying and hoping. And
yeah, winging it. That's
well,
if I ever write my memoir, it's going to be winging it.
So we talked about, some of the challenges of this year, as communicators. Let's flip it upside down. What were some of the highlights of your year, personally, professionally?
Yeah, Pete, what was a highlight of this year?
How does it feel to be put on the spot and have to answer a question like that?
That's tough. The highlight.
Well, the highlight was the 100th episode last week.
Exactly, it was.
That was. But what
All
are
right.
the
Well,
highlights?
personally, in your
that
personal life, how about that?
Well, personally,
No, we can talk about his professional. What professional?
Well, we
highlight?
talked about the podcast.
professionally,
Yeah, I mean, other than the podcast.
okay. Well,
You're more than just a podcaster.
yes. I think the
Yes, Mary Beth is pointing. He's like, Mary's the host. Yes, Mary is the host, but I'm curious too. I feel like it's a cop out to say the 100th episode in the podcast. There are other things you've worked on.
Mike, I think you gave him that answer. Let's hear from Pete.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
Thank
right.
you, Mary Beth.
That's a good
Thank
point.
you, Mary.
Well, I could read his mind.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
see, that's how we're both telepathic. I
Yes.
think, Mike. We're of one mind now.
Or you're predictable. One or the other.
That's terrifying.
But I think, personally, I'm not going to speak too much about it, but I had some health issues a few months ago, and pretty scary stuff. But one of the silver linings in all of that is I've gotten closer to God. And I think that is the biggest blessing. I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. So the trials that I've been through, and I think maybe you guys can relate. I think, just whatever, God's there with you. And I realized that. And I remember my mom told me this. She said, Pete, just let there be one footsteps in the sand. With that quote, when this guy's walking on the beach, he sees one set and he's like, God wasn't with me. And it's like, no, God was with you. He was carrying you. So I think that is a big, what?
That's a beautiful image. I've never heard that before.
You've never heard the footsteps prayer?
No.
Oh, I'll have to send it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
There's a whole.
It's a classic.
And so, I've just been focusing on that, and throughout everything that has happened, thanks be to God, I'm doing well now. I'm excited for the holidays with my family, but like I said, it's been a silver lining and a blessing, and it's kept me realizing that it's a cliche, but every day's a gift, and I'm glad to be here now, and I'm letting God take control wherever He wants me. I'm trying not to force things, and seeing the good in everything. And I know that sounds like a Hallmark card.
No, it doesn't. I just asked you what your highlight was. And it's amazing that the highlight was something that came out of something that was really dark and scary, that.
Yeah, I think it.
So just the way you went about answering that question, it shows that, you do focus on the good and the silver linings.
Yeah, I feel God's presence more than I ever have in my life. So that's one of them. And just highlights is the health of my family and friends. I'm very thankful for them. And I think that, trying to think, things are good. My cousin got engaged, so that's good news for the family. We're excited to celebrate another wedding coming up. That'll be fun. I love to dance, so I am ready to boogie.
I've never witnessed that.
I am ready to boogie. Yeah, we should totally do a podcast dance party.
Mm-hmm.
The Grinch disapproves.
I'm trying to imagine that as a podcast.
You could totally see my Carlton Banks. I can totally.
In the audio medium, we could totally get that to transfer.
And in the vault.
No. That is when we start the video podcast, Mike. Then we're gonna start.
My son actually came to. We were eating at a restaurant last night. And he was like, Dad, when are you going to start a food podcast? And I said, Jack, so many people have asked when we're going to do a food podcast. And I said, I don't object to it. I think it's fine. But if I do it, I'm only going to do it on one condition. We have to do it at the restaurant we're eating at. And we have to order whatever it is, that's what it's got to be. It's got to be an in-person thing. I don't know how to make that happen. I don't know why anybody would listen to it, but I think that's what we need to do.
This is already half a food podcast. How many of these have turned into conversations about food?
Sure, many of them, yeah.
Sorry, Mary Beth.
Oh,
go
no,
ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm sort of like beginning to feel the great Catholic cook-off or something. We could
Oh,
have, like,
Could do that.
I
That
don't
has
know,
a
we
ring
could-
to it. I
There's
like
no
it.
more. There's no more wing bowl. We can do like the I don't know if there are any Catholic chefs out there.
Okay. I know some Catholic chefs. We can
do?
work on that.
Mike's the Catholic chef.
I am a Catholic chef. That
And
is
Father
true.
Sinatra makes a mean meatball. I know that.
That's what he claims.
So I'm sorry. I'm taking Mary and you ladies are the hosts. I'm talking too much.
Well, you weren't hosting. You were answering.
You were
That's fine.
answering.
I
You're
was,
the
but
guest,
then
so
I
you should be
became-
doing most of the talking.
Yeah.
Did you feel yourself putting your host hat on, Pete?
Do I what?
Did you feel yourself putting your host
I
hat
totally
on?
did. I totally did, and I was uncomfortable. I was like, wait a minute. I should see this.
Crisscross.
What?
Crisscross.
Yeah.
Upside down.
It is so. Yeah, it is very weird being on the other side of the mic.
I think Pete's loving it, actually. I disagree. I think he likes to be able to answer questions as opposed to answer them all the time. I think it's a nice change of pace.
Mike, you speak
is,
for
but there's-
yourself.
What?
You're always speaking for Pete.
Well, yeah, okay, that's true.
Again, he
Well, what
can
were you? Oh, sorry.
telepathy. Again, Mike is the Jean Grey here of the X-Men. She can read people's minds.
Why can't I be just Charles Xavier? Why do we got to retcon me into a female character? I can just be Charles Xavier.
Now
I got
I'm
terrible
lost.
legs, so I mean, I'm going to be in a wheelchair at some point, so that's fine. I'm losing my hair. I'm definitely going to be Charles Xavier. There you go.
Mike,
What?
highlights of your year?
Super Bowl win for the Eagles.
Wow, you were ready for this.
I was.
You had a lot of time to
That's
think
why I
about
said
it and
ask
not
Pete-
listen to Pete when he
That's
was talking.
Right, exactly. Blah, blah, God, health, whatever. Super Bowl
Wow.
win. Got to actually wear a Super Bowl ring for a little while. Thank you, Father Barcelona, although it took me 6 months to make it happen. That's about it.
The Super Bowl win, that's it?
That's no. I mean everything. Everything's been ever since I've come to the diocese. Things have been really, really good, and I'm very, very fortunate, and I'm very, very appreciative of it. We try doing new things all the time, and more often than not, they're successful. We have a couple of clunkers in there, but things have been good. The family's healthy. We just celebrated our 1 year anniversary with our dog. So, Molly's doing great. And, I mean, we did the Man Up conference this year, and that was successful. And we had another successful JFA this year. That was really great.
was.
And we got the convocation coming up in March. And, let's keep praying to the Holy Spirit that works out, because as everyone knows, I have a good track record with doing events, but I'm a very anxious event planner, so I always prepare for the worst, and I always look forward to an event being finished as opposed to the run-up
There
to
you
the
go.
event. But no, it's been a 2018, with a week to go or 10 days to go. It's been a very good year for all of us, I think, for the most part.
If I can interject for a sec, Mary, do you mind?
At least it's nice of you to
You
ask
are the
permission.
guest.
That's okay.
No, well, Mike, you sparked one of the best stories and best memories I remember
It's the Eagles.
in this diocese. Yeah, I actually got to watch the Eagles Super Bowl win with Bishop Joseph Galante, Bishop Emeritus.
Oh, no way.
Retired
I didn't know you were
bishop.
with them.
He, it's funny, I'm not that big a football fan. I'm more baseball, but the opportunity came up as the Eagles advanced in the playoffs. I knew Bishop Galante was a big fan and actually was friends with the former GM, whose name escapes me, forgive me. And from like 1980, Mike, do you know? Murray, thank you. Murray, his last name was Murray. But I actually called up Bishop Galante, I think a couple days, maybe a week before the Super Bowl. I said, do you mind if I come to your residence and watch a game with you? And he said, no problem. So I did, and not only to watch a game with him and Jim Murray's former Eagles GM, sat right next to him on the couch. That was a good, talking about Eagles experiences, showed me his ring from the NFC Championship in 1980. I think it was 80. Mike, am I?
Yeah, it's 80.
Okay. And that was just an experience, and also that they won. to see that joy on Bishop Galante's face. He's a local guy. He's St. Joe's Prep grad, like myself. So we talked about that for a bit, and just a great night. And I'll never forget that, being in the holiness. And he blessed a rosary for me and gave it to me, which I have, and that's close to me. And thanks for jogging my memory, Mike.
Sure thing. I'm going to jog your memory again. Do you have not to take from our three hosts here, but do you have a favorite podcast from the past year that you really liked?
That was on my list of questions,
Sorry.
by the way.
Nice
it was on
one.
all of the hosts had that question written down.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think I don't know.
By picking one, obviously, then all the other ones suck. But just which one did you really like?
They do not all suck.
98 guests are about to be offended.
No, wait. Am I doing the past 100 or the past year?
I can't remember all 99. So just from the past year. Or I guess maybe do you have one that really stands out in your mind?
Well, I'm thinking of somebody like, I'm just thankful the CFR sisters. I can't speak enough. I know I've talked a lot about them. The Franciscan Sisters of the Renewal have been in this diocese for a year and a half, for women serving God. And to hear their experience, one of them was we were just talking about it, one of them was a tennis player, another was engaged. And I mean, these women have shed I don't want to say shed society, but I guess societal norms to really enter this state, this relationship with God in a profound way, and they're serving the poor, they're evangelizing the youth. We saw them; two of them were out at a podcast last week. We've been to Atlantic City a few times. I've covered many events with them. You and I, Mike, have been there many times. It's I just can't get enough of their spirituality. And for somebody who is constantly on their phone and wanting to detach from things somewhat in life, like, I want to spend a weekend not away from my phone, away from the busyness of life. And these women have that. They really live in a state of providence and grace and trust in the Lord, complete trust in the Lord. They don't look at the internet, or they don't have a TV, and sometimes I'm like, that sounds awesome. Like to get away from the noise, to have that silence in your heart and the physical that they seem to have. Even though they're very busy and they do a lot of great work, to be able to have that interior peace that I'm looking for in some ways. I feel it, but I'm always asking God, cure this restless heart. St. Augustine would talk about that. And I guess they are just, they inspire me so much.
They are remarkable. And you're right about the benefit of detaching, and everyone in this room is communicators. I feel like that's a really hard thing to do. Putting the phone away. I don't know what you guys do. Play video games? Is that? Do you still play video games? I don't know.
We're boys, or why are you saying that?
Because I feel like you and Jack, your son.
Oh yeah.
Do you guys? I'm saying all forms of electronic and communication. That's something.
Funny. Hearing Pete say, sometimes I just want to detach.
Because you were always glued to.
I love being attached. I do.
You couldn't do it, Mike.
You got to send him away to the
mountains
mountains.
too, Mike.
You can't have both. No. You get to pick one answer. I'm picking the other answer. I really do. I love being interconnected with everything. Sometimes it is a struggle, but I really embrace it. That's now the flip side of that. I will say that we took a trip to Europe this year, and on the flight over and the flight back, obviously there was no
left to your thoughts.
I was left to just my thoughts, and old episodes of Daredevil on Netflix that I downloaded. But it was kind of nice not having to worry about email or text messages. But the first thing I did as soon as I landed was fire it up and see what I had missed. And turns out there had been many things that had happened in those 6 hours over and 9 hours back that that had happened, and like I hit the ground in Philadelphia, and I was immediately taking care of an issue that happened in one of our facilities around the diocese, and but it was that's the job. Not that I don't enjoy it. There are, I mean, you had asked about sort of dealing with the troubles, and the one thing I hadn't done that was one thing I really love to do, which is go out on my parents' boat just into the middle of the Chesapeake and just kind of like relax. And I wasn't able to. The boat wasn't working this summer, so I wasn't able to do that. So I was a little bummed about that.
Now, I love that both of your parents came to the live podcast last week.
Yes,
that was really
nice.
special.
I also like that your dad took a shot at me on the.
That wasn't a shot; it was a question.
It was not a shot.
Oh, he took a shot at me. That was pretty funny. I laughed. It was funny. It was good. He said I gave short shrift to the Merton prayer. I was like, oh, look at that. That's what I would do to Pete.
Well, he loves that prayer.
Dr. Sanchez got me.
He has framed that prayer before.
As have I.
Yeah,
on my desk.
Then
So were you guys more nervous with your parents there, or did you feel more comfortable with your parents there?
Let me answer that one first. I was more nervous about Pete throughout the entire thing. Well, I'd never been in front. I'd never seen Pete. Like, I've been in front of crowds plenty of times, so I knew it was.
But you're introverted.
I am. Yes, that's true. I am very introverted, but I can turn it on when it's time to turn it on. Pete, I had never seen in a situation like that before, so I was really not sure how he was going to react to 50 people watching him and stuff like that. And man, he took to it like a fish to water. He was just like in the zone. I was because I didn't need to worry about that. That's awesome.
Well, there were definitely nerves, but I think with my parents there, it definitely made it more nervous, and also your parents too. Meeting your mother. Unfortunately, I did not have time to talk to your dad, but your mother, very sweet woman.
She is. They are both it skipped a generation. They are incredibly super nice, loving, sweet people. Not a negative bone in their body. No sarcasm, no jadedness. They are truly delightful. And then there's me.
But they were both. I looked at them, and both of them just were beaming when you guys were talking and in your zone. That you could tell that they could tell that you were doing what you loved.
Except when I kept referencing my mother, and I would see her. Oh God, he's talking about me again. And then I also, every time I took a shot at Pete, I always looked over at her, and she'd be shaking her head like, "Be nice, Michael." They're sweet.
Well, speaking of family, any Christmas plans?
Together, no. I need time away from Pete. No,
time away from Mike.
We're hosting my wife's side of the family for Christmas breakfast. We're hosting my mom's side of the family for Christmas lunch. So we're doing back-to-back meals with two different families, and then we're going to my dad's side of the family for dinner. So it'll be our usual march of Christmas of just trudging through the day and getting really, really fat.
Now, does Jack believe in Santa still? I forget what age.
So here's the thing with Jack. Jack has now gotten to the point where
How old is
he's 10.
Okay.
He's 10 and a half, and I'm pretty sure he's playing. Mary Beth is shaking his head, her head. I'm pretty sure he's playing us now.
I forget what age we all realized.
He has brought up. He's brought up the Tooth Fairy, Santa, and that stupid Elf on the Shelf a couple of different times, and he's talked about how some kids don't believe, some kids do believe. He's given me all these like these theories about Santa and stuff like that, which tells me, because I remember doing that when I was his age, or actually probably a little younger. He's hedging his bets. On the off chance that Santa does exist, he doesn't want to claim that he doesn't exist, but he's pretty sure Santa doesn't exist. But he doesn't want to throw anything off because he still needs to get presents on Christmas Day. So I think the day after Christmas, we're going to have a conversation with Jack and
ruin Christmas for him. You got to wait for him to. Well, I'm not a parent. I think
this is his way of trying to bring it up, and I don't want to ruin it for him before Christmas. So we'll talk about it after Christmas. But I'm at this point because he's 10, he's in 5th grade. He's got a ton of kids in his class that have older brothers and sisters. So at this point, the knowledge is known. But I don't want to. I don't want to extinguish it for him until he's ready to have it extinguished. So,
all right. That
being said, he lost a tooth last night, and I told him instead of putting it under your pillow, I said put it in front of the elf and see if the elf can get you a better deal on your tooth.
What's the elf? I haven't.
The Elf on the Shelf. I'll be glad you don't have to deal with that. The Elf on the Shelf is some terrible marketing tool that some evil person came up with, where you take this little elf. This little elf comes to your house, and it's there to look. Santa sends it to your house. He just sits. It's a little doll. He sits on a shelf, and and he looks after the kids, and then every night he flies back to Santa and lets the kids know what.
No.
Yes, so he's Big Brother. So the thing is, though, every night he needs to move, or she needs to move to a different position in the house. So you can imagine what that must feel like
such
for
a headache.
yeah,
Oh,
for
my
parents. However, last night, which was nice because it helped me to remember that Elvie needed to move. And yes, in our house, Elf is called Elvie. Elvie. So I said to Jack, well, why don't you put your tooth in front of Elvie and see if you can get you a better deal than the Tooth Fairy can. The Tooth Fairy usually brings $1. And this morning, Elfie had in fact moved, and there was a $5 bill in front of Elfie.
Oh.
So apparently, Santa pays better than the Tooth Fairy for a busted canine.
So he probably doesn't believe in that either. But
Oh yeah, he doesn't. He completely doesn't. But we're gonna keep it going for a little while, and
There
then
you go.
figure it's 7 more days. What about you, Pete? What are you doing for Christmas?
Well,
Will there be pecan pie for Christmas?
no, actually, no. I'm planning. I'm going to spend it with my
Because you
family.
had promised to make a pecan pie for the 100th episode, and it didn't happen.
No, I apologize, Mike. I got different with the throws of different. There are whispers. There are side conversations going on now.
No, they're hosting. Don't. Hey, don't lift the veil of hosting. They're working out the rest of the episode.
Well, no, with the basically my Christmas will be with my family, my sisters and my parents, and my aunts and uncles. We're going up, and the 23rd, we're going to spend time with aunts and uncles for a Christmas party, and there will be cooking, probably some Cuban food. I was talking to my dad yesterday. We're probably going to make a big Cuban spread Christmas night. We're thinking tostones, rice and beans, ropa vieja, croquetas, which are my favorite. They're like fried ham. They're just delicious. They're like little fried ham bites, croquetas, and just that. Just relaxing with family. Going to New York one day next week to see a Broadway show and to also have Cuban food. I think I've talked about this before. There's a great place, Victor's. I highly recommend it if you're in New York. It's 51st, I think 51st or 52nd on the Upper West Side. And it's amazing.
hence a food podcast.
Right. It
Yes,
always
and I
turns
know
to food.
Armando over there, so maybe I can talk to Armando. We can go up there.
I've been to Victor's. I love it.
Oh, you have?
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, here we
It
go.
is amazing. And also Christmas music. One of the things I do listen to music as I'm wrapping, decorating the tree, and I picked up a new album yesterday by this band, The Mavericks. And I forget the name of I had never heard of them before, but I heard it was a good Christmas album. It's got rock, it's got some Latin infusion, it's got some jazz. It is so good. It is danceable. It is just nice. So the Mavericks, I think it's called Hey, Merry Christmas. I think that's the name of the CD. It's a nice little, and I'll listen to Frank Sinatra, of course, Bing Crosby.
Yeah.
Sufjan Stevens has a great Christmas CD. I think
Sufjan.
So the
So,
three of us collaborated here, and looking forward into the new year, as we approach the new year, we would like to know what you guys envision for the podcast in the new year.
Well, I'll tell you, McCusker hates being a guest, but she seems to have taken the fish to water to hosting. So I think we might have to give McCusker her own podcast series at some point.
I agree.
Yeah,
She's a natural.
No.
she was. All of her questions were
Like
good.
I
Her
said, this was
enthusiasm's
about
good.
retribution for me, and I didn't even ask any uncomfortable questions. These
Oh, I don't
were
know.
all
You had-
very
you asked-
reasonable questions,
You-
but I could have really
Well,
taken full advantage of this opportunity.
You did something that I thought about laying down ground rules for this episode, and then I decided, no, we're just gonna we never have ground rules. We'll let the conversation go where it goes. And you did ask a hard hitting question, and I was curious because I knew, I think like everyone else thinks. I was like, I wonder if she's going to ask about the scandals and how I've reacted to it. And sure enough, you did. And no, I think that's perfect, and I think that's a good thing. It shows you just how natural and organic the podcasts are. But seriously, I've said this for a while, and we started it with the Talking Saints podcast, and having Lori be the primary host along with Pete. We need to have more female voices. I've been talking about it for 6 months. We need to have more Spanish voices, Spanish language voices. In terms of this podcast specifically, we are going to try and lock down some bigger names, maybe from outside the diocese. I sent Pete a couple of text messages that he didn't respond to yet, but I want to start.
He's detaching.
Yeah, he was detached.
No, I got him.
I want to start doing a few. We did a couple last year of business owners. I'd like to do a couple more Catholic business owners, maybe through the Catholic Business Network, maybe not, just to sort of talk about how their Catholic faith influences their, their perspective on, being a small business owner or a business leader. Things like that. I think that's always interesting. And I want to start doing, the head of the Catholic Science Association, I believe, if he's still the same president, he works in Delaware. I think he's at the University of Delaware. I'd like to interview him as part of the podcast at some point.
Catholic Science Association.
Yeah, well,
I'd have some questions for him.
Well, yeah, it's
That'd
fast.
be an interesting person.
I think so too. I had the opportunity to sit in with a couple of Catholic scientists who were giving a presentation at the Dunwoody Seminary in Yonkers, New York last year, and it was great. And I'm thinking that it would be a perfect opportunity to do it on the podcast as well. But then I think we still want to keep making sure that we spotlight people in the diocese who are doing great work. But from one week to the next, we have an idea of people we want to interview, but we do have the remnants of a list that we created 2 years ago, of people we want to interview. But a lot of times it's sort of just the Holy Spirit at work and bringing people to our attention and reading stories in the Star Herald and sitting down and having a conversation with people. What about you, Pete? Anybody or anything? Any topics?
Well, all the things you said, I'm excited about. I agree with you. I would love to get like a series on, pick a topic and maybe find somebody to talk about it. Something about, say, like, I don't know, just confession or something about the Holy Spirit. Like, do a theme. Maybe during Lent have like a Lenten series. I don't know how that would work.
So you're thinking a little more informational.
Well, a little bit of both. I think I would. Yeah, I'm thinking conversations are good, but
that's a really good idea. And you know what? I think I'd like to do that separate from the Talking Catholic. I like if we could have, say, Father Sinatra or Father Michael Goyette. He could do 7 weeks during Lent on confession or Lent, because they're both very. I think they have very good. Not that any of our other priests don't, but those two in particular, I know, have very interesting perspectives on how to conduct yourself during the time of Lent. That's a great idea. We should do that.
Yeah, I'm thinking, and of course, making the Talking Saints more than 12 minutes.
Well, at least the St. Nick one.
St. Nicholas, yes. Yeah. Lori and I, we kind of course corrected because we went over a few times with a few others, and I wanted to make it a bit tighter. And maybe you're right. I think more oversight should be made. More consideration should be made with the importance of the saint.
What Pete is doing right now is undercutting a great deal of what is brought up during the 100th episode. You'll hear a lot of St. Nick, 12-minute St. Nick conversation during the 100th episode.
I'm surprised Lori's still talking to you.
I don't think she is, but she hasn't yet since then. But I really do want more female voices. I want more variety. I would like to see this become a podcast network where we have a number of different shows. So what we really need are people coming up to us and saying, "Hey, listen, I got a great idea for a podcast, and more importantly, I would like to do it, and I would like to do it on a regular basis. It doesn't have to be weekly. Yeah. It could be monthly. It could be little mini series, like Lenten mini series and stuff like that. But I think we need to create more.
I do.
More content. We need more content.
Sounds good.
You hear that?
We will.
You hear that? You three hosts, now that you've all been doing it. You're gonna do stuff. By the way, do we have any announcements for this week or information, or did we? Are we promoting anything?
I see a pile of papers in the middle of the table.
I'd hate to give any of our events coming up short shrift.
Let's see what we have here. Well, I am looking at Life and Justice Ministries Diocesan Gathering. This is called Go Out to All the World, and it's a, I guess, an evening? A Saturday. Missionary Discipleship in Action through Parish Ministry. And staff members Rachel Malinowski and Jeff Wallace will co-facilitate a day-long workshop that teaches practical skills to parish ministers in how to identify, develop, and empower new leaders who are focused on promoting justice and Catholic social teaching.
That's something
Sounds like
some
a great
Catholic
workshop.
Charities staff would go to. That sounds interesting.
And that is January 19th. Sorry, we didn't prepare this part too
No, we
well
didn't.
because we jumped right into the content with our guests and saved this for the end. January 9th, Pope Francis and the Culture of Encounter. Pope Francis, let me just clarify, is not the guest speaker. However, Father Thomas Daly, an oblate of St. Francis de Sales, will be the featured speaker. And that is at the Cathedral Parish of the Immaculate Conception, right here in Camden.
And I think
that's part of the Cathedral Speaker Series.
I think I'd like to try and get to that, and Pete, you might want to try to get to that as well. Actually, all of us should, because he's the head of communications at the St. Charles Borromeo Seminary, the Cardinal Foley Chair. He's a fascinating guy, and he might have some interesting perspective. So that might be a good one to go to, particularly for lovers of the podcast.
For all other information, we would suggest you go to the Diocese of Camden website, where you will find events and information about things going on throughout the diocese. And I'm sure that you will find every church you go to will be beautiful over this upcoming Christmas weekend and Christmas Day. So throughout the diocese, Mass is everywhere, and we hope you can make it.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, thank you for joining us on Talking Catholic. I say that to the two hosts.
Thank you for
thank you for joining.
Thank you for inviting us. This is very nice.
Yeah.
This is only the second time. Well, third time for me, because when Lori was on, I just rambled on and on and on the entire time. I still feel bad about that.
Well, if there's the fourth time, prepare for the really awkward and uncomfortable questions, because I tucked those away for this time. But
oh, it's a Christmas gift to us.
Yes.
That's nice.
Well, Merry Christmas, and thank you for joining us on Talking Catholic.